Hello and welcome to another episode of the DTF podcast here on the Field of 68 Media Network. Sorry we weren't here with you guys yesterday. I had a funeral that I had to attend, and we are back here on a Tuesday, guys. It is a Tuesday afternoon edition of the Field of 68 of the DTF podcast. Rob Dawson, Terrence Oglesby, John Fanta. It was one of the most fun Saturdays in college basketball that I can remember in a long time. And Fanta, I'm just going to hit you up on this, man. There is nothing that I love more than a good Saturday with a college basketball slate that starts at noon, and in this case at 11 a.m.,
yes,
that ends after our show is over, where you have wall-to-wall college basketball with games that matter, with games that are fun, with games that you have to have on your television. That was awesome. I'm never going to complain about a Saturday slate like that ever.
it was fantastic. And what you love about a Saturday like that is you don't know where the drama is going to come from. And this past Saturday came in all different ways. You start with Memphis going into Clemson and getting a statement-making win. I thought Tyrese Hunter was just brilliant, and Memphis's toughness showed. And that was what they needed off the Arkansas State loss. Then you flip the channel to CBS, and Texas A&M plays smash-mouth basketball to beat Purdue and really made Purdue uncomfortable offensively. And I haven't seen Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer look that uncomfortable in a long time. Then you flip the channel and you flip to ESPN Plus. Cincinnati ekes out a win over Xavier, and that was such an impressive win for the Bearcats that they needed to get. But you go right down the line. Arizona, panic time in Tucson as UCLA comes back. Kentucky-Louisville was such a fun watch. And I think if you're a Louisville fan, I know this has been tough sledding, but you got to love the effort you put up at Rupp Arena. It was one great game after another. Dayton comes back from 13 down to beat Marquette. And then, guys, I ended the day at Madison Square Garden. And what I watched between UConn and Gonzaga, what's going on?
What's going on, Rob?
I don't know. What is that?
I have no idea what that is.
That is not me, guys. I promise you that is not me.
It's not me.
It's not me either.
We'll keep going, Fitz. I don't know.
Okay, I don't know what's going on. That being said, I ended the day at Madison Square Garden, and the UConn Gonzaga game was absolutely sensational from an atmosphere, from a vibe standpoint. The way that game was played, Gonzaga had their opportunities. There was a debatable, a sequence there on the baseline where Gonzaga is going in to potentially tie the game, and the refs let them play. But UConn showed us Saturday, that they're still in a place where they can achieve what they want to achieve. And there's nothing like a sold-out Madison Square Garden. I think it delivers just a vibe to this sport. Rob, you said it was coming through on your TV.
Mm-hmm.
Those types of big games, neutral site, although the Zag fans did better than I thought they would going in, but those types of games just do wonders for the sport in prime time. And it was an outstanding weekend of college basketball. And now we dive into a really fun week in 2 weeks where you played. And you know this, Terrence. I'll ask you this question, then Rob, you take it from here. How much fun is this as a player when you're done with your finals and the next couple of weeks you can just hoop?
You're a pro. That's what it feels like. I mean, we can go back and forth about whether you're pros all the time or not, but that's the best time of the year. You show up, you get good parking for the only time that you ever live on campus. You get good parking. You can pull right up to your apartment, no problem. Everybody's home. You work on your game. You go home. You sleep. Life is good. And then sometimes you squeeze in some video games. It's the best. But you talk about this weekend. How about the heater that Fox was on this weekend? Seton Hall Rutgers on Big Fox. I looked at that game. I was like, oh, no. And then it ends up going down to the wire and was a great game. Dylan Harper hits a monster shot at the end. And then you go to Illinois and Tennessee. Jordan Gainey gets all the way to the cup at the end of the game. Tennessee, despite being pretty hit up with injuries, they come back and win. And, if you weren't already familiar with Kasparas Yakachionis, whatever, dude, he's so good. He had 2 4-point plays in a matter of 2 minutes.
Kasparas Yakachionis.
Yakachonis. Yeah, that's what I said. I said that the first time. Yakachonis. So he
really
was
good.
He's really good. He's big. He's going to play for a long time. But so much talent on the floor. Fox was on a heater, and then they ended the night with Gonzaga at UConn. Dude, unbelievable day. Up and down really the entire day. Dayton played amazing at their place, such a difficult spot to play. Kentucky, kind of had some problems with Louisville. And guys, I don't know if you remember this, but coming into the season, I picked Kentucky high, and I was like, I felt like everybody forgot about Lamont Butler. That dude's good. Goes 10 for 10 from the field, ends up with 33, and he might be the best point guard defender in the country. So, it's just a really, really fun day of sports. Some surprises, some affirmations of what we've kind of been looking at. Like, we were worried a little bit about Purdue's guards, right? They played Texas A&M, and Braden Smith looked extra small against Jerick Phelps. Fletcher Lawyer had a hard time kind of getting anywhere against guys like that. So, I'm not saying we're wrong. We're not trying to be mean, but a lot of these things really, really good.
Yep. I want to talk to you guys about the SEC a little bit. Okay. T.O., we spent a little bit of time on this on Sunday night's episode of After Dark with CJ Moore. But what do you make of the level of dominance that we're seeing? Is this just like a cyclical thing? Is this just happen to be a year where the SEC is really, really good and some of the teams in the ACC and the Big East are maybe down compared to what we would have expected? Or is this something where the money's coming in? It's got football money coming in. You have revenue sharing coming in where they're going to have a bigger slice of pie to divide into basketball. They're going to have more money to be able to spend there. Is this something where, let me phrase it like this, can other leagues model what the SEC is doing, or is this just the SEC flexing its financial muscle?
Flexing its financial muscle. They have that ability, and a lot of the cities that these SEC schools are in, that's the only show in town. And there's a different sort of willingness to be an active participant in the roster. I think that's the big thing. And then you throw in football money, and I'm touch and go on that, guys. We look at what North Carolina did, paying $10 million for Bill Belichick. Like, that money could have been used elsewhere. And you guys kind of care about football, but you don't. And here's the thing, it kind of comes back to, they're like, if football good, everybody good. No. The teams that are good are the teams where you're putting your financial resources. And if you have $10 million, why wouldn't you put it in basketball? I you don't care about football. You never really have. And here we are, putting a bunch of money in a 72-year-old dude. I heard his girlfriend got tuition there, but outside of that, there's not a whole lot of positives out of hiring a 72-year-old human. So I don't know what exactly they're thinking. They did make a bang announcement in a transfer portal by signing a center from Holy Cross. Good for them. They're off to a blazing start. But I just don't really understand, why this has been a thing that just catches on. Well, football goods, everybody's good. No, it's not true. Can it buoy you up? Can it buoy you up to mediocrity? Sure. But if you put money in, that's where you're going to have success. That's why the SEC's been good.
Yeah, and Fan, it's really hard just to kind of piggyback on that. It's really hard to look at the money that UNC spent on Bill Belichick and ignore the fact that they couldn't get Cliff Amore over the line, and he decided to go to Alabama, and they couldn't get AJ DeBonsa over the line, which in part was a financial decision by AJ and his father, right? And there's a number of other guys that could have helped fix that North Carolina front line that they were not able to find a way to be able to bring into the
and I've had a lot of pushback with that. I've had a lot of pushback. People texting me being like, it's not that they weren't able, it's just that they didn't open up their resource book. So both can be true. However, it didn't get done. So, and the funny thing, and sorry, Fant, I'll let you go here in a second, but the funny thing to me is they're like, well, they match the money. That's not how negotiations work. You don't match the money and make it dead even and be like, you pick. No, if you want something, you outbid the other person. That's how it is with freaking houses. That's how it is with what are we doing?
That's how it is for Juan Soto.
Yeah, it's insane. It's insane to me.
Look, here's the thing. You could also have a lot of money and it doesn't buy you wins. Because if you have bad coaching, or if you don't have culture, I mean, look at Indiana. Look at Kansas State. Look, Arkansas is going to spend a lot of money. Where's it going to get them? I mean, let's be real here. So you could spend money and spend it incorrectly. Even teams that don't have a lot of money, that have to spend smartly, they could either hit it or they don't hit it.
Yeah.
So is the SEC flexing its collective muscle? Yes. Are they ever going to be short on change? Of course not. They're always going to have the money to spend. But the SEC, it's not all just buying players. They have some of the best coaches in this sport
100%.
who have established programs and stayed at those programs. Bruce Pearl has made Auburn a destination job. Whoever ends up taking over for Bruce Pearl is actually going to have a very, very hard job to be the guy who replaces what Bruce Pearl did. And I'm not saying Bruce is going anywhere. He's made that a destination. Nate Oates has made Alabama basketball a destination and has done an absolutely fantastic job. Rick Barnes is a Hall of Famer. He's one of the best coaches in the country. So they have great coaching. And about 6 or 7 years ago, for those who don't know this, we've told this story on the pod before. The SEC brought in a guy by the name of Mike Tranghese, who was a former Big East commissioner and a big-time basketball mind. And they brought in Mike and a consulting group at their summer meetings. And in those meetings, they rolled up their sleeves and they said, how can we stop being a joke of a league? And how can we start being serious? Money talks, but it also came down to coaching and it came down to scheduling. And one big takeaway that I have from the non-conference season is that there are certain programs that just did not schedule well. It's harder to schedule now more than ever because you can't predict the teams you're playing in November and December. You can barely predict your own team, what your own team's going to have in November and December. But what I will say is this, and I think this is something that the Big East needs to look at. The ACC should look at too. If you are nickeling and diming your bye games, right? What are you doing with players then? In other words, Butler, you're playing North Dakota State last week. That's a terrible bye game. Terrible. Yeah. Seton Hall, why are you buying Fordham? These cases, the ACC has them too, but I'm just giving cases that I know of right off the top of my brain. You have got to get serious if you want to be consistent in this sport and avoid the bad losses. Because at this point, if there's so many great teams, guys, and there's so many good teams, if you've taken a bad loss or two, you're not making the tournament, unless you have an incredible conference season. You got to be able to schedule correctly. You have to put together the right amount of quality chances and the right amount of blowout things. UConn has mastered this with their schedule. Look at what they've done the last 3 games. They have erased the Maui crap, and they also scheduled terrible bye game opponents. Now they have the money to play with, where they paid $100,000 to play East Texas A&M. But if you're a school and you're an AD and you want to be serious, if you're trying to make the NCAA tournament, yeah, the SEC has money that other teams do not. But if you guys, do you want to continue to be in a place where you're only going to get 4 or 5 bids, or do you want to be in a place where you can get 6 or 7? And if I'm the ACC and the Big East right now, I'm looking at this and saying it's not good enough. There's certain programs that are not pulling their weight, not in their exact performance on the court. Of course, wins and losses is what it comes down to, but it's the behind the scenes stuff, circumstantially, how you schedule, how you build your roster. Do you have a GM? The sport now demands that you have these things if you want to have success. Either get with the times or get lost.
The GM part is a huge thing with it too, because there are already guys out there right now whose entire job is to just sit there and watch mid-major basketball and watch these games and put on their checklist, hey, this is the guy that we need to go after. This is the guy that we need to go after. This is a guy. I was talking to one guy that's in charge of that. He's the director of recruiting for a high major program. And he was like, yeah, my list is 2,500 players long right now. That's all I do all day is I just watch these guys and try to figure out who is going to be good enough to be able to play with us next year and who can I cross off of that list. So you have to have somebody in that role. You just have to, because everybody else does. And if you're playing from behind, the big thing that I think you see with a lot of these programs, T.O., is there are a lot of situations where you're missing on some of the transfers that are coming in because you don't have enough time to be able to sit there and evaluate. 2 that immediately come to mind for me are Aiden Mahaney at UConn and AJ Storr at Kansas, where they are good players, but they are not the player that those programs needed for the role that they were recruited to play, if that makes sense, right? Like you needed You didn't need a slasher that was an inefficient kind of score around the rim in AJ Storr. You needed someone that can make shots and space the floor and be a bucket getter for you if you were Bill Self, right? For UConn, you needed a backup point guard, or maybe even ideally someone that would compete with Asante Diar for the starting point guard role, that could guard, that could handle the ball, that could do a bunch of different things. And Aiden Mahaney's fine, but he's not that guy. So being able to evaluate throughout the season, so you're not just having this 1 week where you're trying to pretend like you're watching all of this film in the portal when these guys enter, because it's like this, man. These recruitments are like this, right?
Yeah, and you'll notice some of the teams that are having success in the portal are taking kids from within conference. Like, I think Clemson's a good example of that, taking Jaden Zachary, because they knew what he was about. They knew he was a great defender, and they were familiar with him because he'd played at Boston College the previous 3 years. So it is a difficult spot. I have a feeling I know exactly who you're talking about with the GM with 2,500 names. But that all being said, like, it's a tough gig right now, and it's a very hit or miss situation. If you don't have people looking at it right now and you're not doing background research about the kind of kid he is, because you have to gauge all that stuff within 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And the way it's all set up, I mean, Kansas State shelled out a lot of money, and they don't get along very well. They just got rid of a core, which I don't think he did anything spectacularly wrong. It just didn't mesh well. And as a result, you have a guy who was supposed to be kind of a centerpiece. You don't do your homework, and he ends up not panning out, and it's tough. So that's kind of the hard part about the whole thing. A lot of people have directors of recruiting, and their jobs are a lot harder than it used to be.
Yep. All right, let's talk real quick on the basketball side for the SEC right now. I think we all agree, and Fand, I'll go to you first on this one. T.O. and I and C.J. Moore agreed that Tennessee and Auburn were the two best teams in college basketball last week. We put that to bed. Yeah,
Robbie Hummel would tell me then I should not agree with you three. I'm here with him, and he told me he doesn't believe anything you say.
Who does Robbie Hummel think is the best team in college basketball right now? My guess is that Hummel is going to say that that somebody out of the Big Ten is the best team, because he's on NBC and he's on the Big Ten Network and he's on Peacock and he's on Fox. He doesn't get those SEC games. He's not on ESPN, so he doesn't know. No, in all seriousness, Auburn.
Well, they are.
Yeah, Auburn and Tennessee are the two best teams in college basketball, but Kentucky is top 5, Florida is top 7, and Auburn is top 8, right? Like all three of those teams are consensus. Alabama are consensus top 10 teams. How close are they to that top tier? And is this a 2-team race? Is this a 5-team race? Can all four? Like, can you get 3 or 4 teams from the SEC to the Final Four this year? Like, what are we talking about, fam?
Well, we think on Florida. We're going to find out tonight when they play North Carolina. I think the spread is interesting. It's about 3. So that tells me that one either, that's interesting to me, because I think North Carolina is off to a bit of a tough start here. But
just keep in mind, it's in Charlotte, which is Tar Heel country. Right.
So if UNC is going to put something together here, this is a game that they really, really need for their season trajectory. But let's talk about this league. I think that to me, I did not think Kentucky would be in Tier A, but you have to put them there right now. You really do. I mean, they have put together an amazing start to the season, and nobody had them in Tier A. We're not just talking about their league. We're talking about nationally. When you own wins over Gonzaga and Duke, I don't care how you did it. You beat those teams, and you've done it with offense, and you've done it with depth, and Andrew Carr's been phenomenal. Jackson Robinson has picked up steam, and Lamont Butler, like he just adds a layer of comfortability and calmness to what they do. They're a calm team, but they execute an explosive offense, if that makes sense. They're very good at executing something that takes a lot of thought and depth, and they do it well. I think that Auburn is the best team in the country, and I think Auburn's best is better than everybody else's by a somewhat significant margin. Yes, I said it. Like, I think that there's a pathway here.
I'm not arguing with you. I'm stretching my neck.
There's a pathway here where Auburn goes 35-5 and wins the national championship, or 34-6 and wins the national championship. Like, they could do it. They could do it, and we could be sitting there at the title game in San Antonio saying this was just a formality. They really are that damn good, and they lost at Cameron Indoor, and they lost like 3 SEC games, and they lost an SEC tournament game because it's going to be an unbelievable SEC tournament. Who cares if they lose a game in that? and then they go into the tournament and they win 6 games. Like, would any of us be surprised if they did that? No. Tennessee showed a lot. You know, my thing is, you lose Ziegler with 5 seconds to go in the game, right? You're already down Lanier with 3.5 minutes to go in the game. And you're sitting there saying, who's going to take the last shot for us? They ran that last play like a hot knife through butter on the road, and Gainey comes up with the game winner. Jordan Gainey, what a shot to win the game and take it for Tennessee. So Auburn's the best team. Tennessee is right there with them. And Kentucky, to me, that's where the debate begins. The debate begins with, is it Kentucky or is it Alabama? I'm not ready to say Florida is third best in the SEC, even though their ranking indicates that they could be. Florida needs to prove it to me against some of the higher quality competition. Florida beating Arizona State in Atlanta is a solid win, but it's a game that an experienced Florida team should win. Beat Carolina handily, and then I'll be fully buying Florida.
Yep. T.O.?
Yeah, as far as the third best team, like, to me, Tennessee's the best team right now, because not only are they winning on the road at Illinois against a very good team, they're doing it like without a bunch of players that are hurt. And then you foul out arguably your number 1 and number 2 option on the floor, and you still have Jordan Gainey find a way. And the way the offense is playing this year for Tennessee really changes my mind. And we've talked about over the last X amount of years, you know, they need to be top 20 in KenPom at the end of the year. Well, Auburn offensively is number 1 in the country. Defensively, they're 14th. Tennessee, defensively, they're number 1 in the country. Offensively, they're 16th. So it's really kind of picking and choosing what you feel on a given day. But just because I feel like Tennessee's always going to rely on the defensive end, and Auburn is too. I'm not saying they don't, because they're awesome as well. But like Tennessee defensively, everything hurts. Everything you do hurts whenever you play Tennessee. And to be able to go on the road in Champaign, they foul out 2 really good players, and then they still able to squeak it out. I'm still going Tennessee because of that, because of the 10-0 record. And let's be honest, like a lot of their wins, pretty good wins. Great wins, I don't know. Really good wins, yes. Illinois, Baylor, Virginia stinks. Louisville's okay, but like they're fine. They're fine wins, all of them. I think they're still the best team in the country.
So
they're holding teams to 25% from 3.
Yeah, I know. I made this argument the other day with UTO and Fan. We'll have to do a break after this, but I'm just curious your thoughts on if this is something that is justifiable or makes sense. I think that Auburn is the best team in college basketball, and I think that if you look at where their net rating is, CJ brought this up. Their net rating right now is so much higher than any team that we've ever seen.
KenPom rating.
Their KenPom. The net rating for the difference in efficiencies between offense and defensive rating is different. Is higher than anything we've ever seen at this point in time by like a significant margin in KenPom's database ever for this date. They have right now they're on pace to have the highest adjusted offensive efficiency rating in the history of KenPom's database ever. So,
which is crazy to say that about Auburn.
Yeah,
because they're typically the team that you would say that about, maybe defensively.
Yep,
not offensively.
So I think on paper Auburn is like the best team and should be the favorite to win the national title at BetMGM. But like Tennessee, I think is the one team that's kind of built to be able to beat them because they have the backcourt defenders and because they have like the toughness. Like T.O. said, everything hurts when you play Tennessee, and you have to be that physical when you are playing Auburn.
One quick thing, though. You remember that unbelievable year where the Big East sent 11 teams to the tournament, and the SEC should surpass that with 12, maybe even 13, but 12 teams in the dance. If you remember, then that league underperformed severely in the NCAA tournament because their teams beat up on each other so much from January to March that then some teams really got exposed. Like, just when you think you know everything in this sport, we just don't. Like, there's still stuff to process. It is a marathon. I agree with everything that we're all saying here, but I would just say this: like, I think what's fascinating is there is a clear-cut top tier, and the majority of it is from the Southeastern Conference. But once you get to like 10th in the country and so on, there's not that much of a difference at all between like the 11th best team in the country and the 35th best team in the country. So buckle up, because I do think this can be a year where one or two Final Four teams are teams that we did not expect. The question is, will that hottest team be good enough to compete with either an Auburn or a Tennessee in the Final Four? I wonder what that bet would be. Just one of them to make the Final Four right now.
It would be right now Tennessee is plus 1,400, so they're considered like the fifth or sixth best team on.
Wow, that's
on
a good
BetMGM.
value.
Yeah, that's really good value right now. Listen, when we get back, you mentioned teams that can make the Final Four, teams that can make a run. There is a stat that allows you to, for the last 20 seasons, guarantee one of 12 teams to win a national title. I'll tell you what that stat is, and one of the teams that will not be in that top 12 coming up right after this. If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM for this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets. Go download the BetMGM app and use the code FIELD today. That always gets me with the BetMGM lion roar. All right, so the Week 6 AP poll, the national champion the last 20 years has been ranked in the top 12, the Week 6 AP poll. It was last week was Week 6, and the top 12 was Tennessee, Auburn, Iowa State, Duke, Kentucky, Marquette, Alabama, Gonzaga, Florida, Kansas, Purdue, Oregon. There is no UConn in that top 12. UConn had, I would say, their most impressive performance of the season. They beat Gonzaga in what was effectively a home game at Madison Square Garden. Should we really be viewing UConn as a team that can repeat, that can make a run there? Is this just an example of them getting hot at the right time? Like, where do you stand on that?
Why are we doing those 12 teams?
Can you read the 12 teams again?
Okay, so the top 12 of the AP poll in Week 6, in each of the last 20 years, the national champion has been in the top 12 of the AP poll in Week 6. So last week was Week 6, and the top 12 teams in order: Tennessee, Auburn, Iowa State, Duke, Kentucky, Marquette, Alabama, Gonzaga, Florida, Kansas, Purdue, Oregon. So if history is going to repeat itself like it has for the last 20 years, one of those 12 teams will win the national championship. And do you think that UConn can be the team that spoils that this year? T.O., nothing?
They're really good on the mainland. Last time I checked, they haven't lost in any state not named Hawaii. So could they? Yeah. Will they? I mean, don't ever doubt Dan Hurley. I do think it'll be tough, though. There's a lot of really good teams and a lot of much bigger teams across the front line than what we just mentioned.
Well, look, the Hollywood script writes itself. If you were to go on a three-peat and you achieve something that only John Wooden has, it would only be, fitting that you also achieve something that nobody's done the last 20 years, which was you weren't in the top 12 in Week 6, and now you are. I mean, a week later here, you're ranked 11th in the country. So it's not like they were that far off. I think the Maui trip was just a perfect storm, pun intended, for just a disaster of a week where they couldn't work on anything.
Yeah.
Couldn't work on anything. Also, they played good teams, with the exception of Colorado. Like, they played a Memphis team that's really freaking good. And if the ball bounces one way, UConn may win that game. And then maybe they make the final of that. I mean, woulda, shoulda, coulda. But and they play Dayton. Dayton's good. I have them in my top 20 this week. I think they're one of the better teams in the country. Zed Key, Nate Santos, Enoch Cheeks, what they're getting they have old dudes who know how to win and who play really hard. And Anthony Grant's a terrific coach. So I think that, yes, Rob, yes, UConn can defy the odds because they're still getting better.
Yeah.
Jaden Ross, Jalen Stewart, solo ball, Ross is still trying to figure it fully out. Jalen Stewart has figured it out, and now is ready to be a double figure off the bench scorer. Terrace Reed and Samson Johnson. I thought this on Saturday. I don't know if Samson Johnson, gets UConn to win by 10 to 15. Here's what I do know. Johnson has been in some foul trouble in some big games.
Every game.
He exited the game. I thought UConn played just smarter basketball defensively with Reed and even Yusuf Singare, who played 7 minutes in the game and knew his role and knew what to do. That's a sign of a great program. A guy at the end of the bench comes in and like, you didn't notice him, but it was a good thing. He wasn't getting exposed severely. They're getting better. They have to make up for the loss of Tristan Newton with shot making at the 2 and the 3 spot this year. And they don't have an unbelievable rim protector. But McNeely is incredible. I mean, he is like the best part about this college season. And I'm seeing it from casuals. You guys talk to people who are like, yeah, I love college basketball in February and March. But I am getting more texts than I have early in the season from people who are like, wow, like Flagg, but not just Flagg.
Fun.
Holy crap, Harper and McNeely. This is what college hoops is supposed to be. The return of the freshmen. COVID took away freshmen flourishing in college hoops. It is back, and it is glorious. Liam McNeely on Saturday night, that was one of the most impressive floor game performances, considering it came at Madison Square Garden against a Gonzaga team that was very hungry for a win and hadn't lost back-to-back games since 2018. To answer your question, yes. Connecticut can three-peat. I'm never doubting Dan Hurley. I'm never doubting him, period. But anybody doubting him is just they have an agenda against him. Like, stop.
Yeah.
He's as good as any coach in the country. And enough with the, trying to question what they're doing, how they're doing it. You can critique, but you got to understand, like, that's the best staff in the country right now.
Yeah.
And they figured it out the last couple of weeks. And they're playing great ball.
Are UConn fans going to be upset if they make the Elite Eight?
No. I think that there's been a change in mindset, at least from the rational human beings that I know in the UConn fan base, and that there was it was kind of a, wow, this team isn't very good. Let's just back them, man. Like, this could be fun. We could watch something grow here. Like, you can watch the build of this group, and I think a lot of the accounts that you're used to seeing on social media are going to be banging that, like, we can win this national title repeat bandwagon. But I think a lot of them kind of realize, like, this is it's something of a rebuilding year, I guess is the way to kind of phrase it, like a reloading year. And could make deep into the second weekend. Yes, and it's very possible that they could do that. And I'll ask you this: like, would you be that shocked if they were able to kind of outpace Marquette for a Big East regular season championship this year? Like, I think we've all kind of accepted that Marquette is the best team and the favorite to win it. But TL, like, where Marquette just went on the road and lost at Dayton after blowing a 13-point lead. I have my opinions on that, but I'm curious what you think about it.
Do I think, just from a consistency perspective, could they? I mean, two terrific coaches. The thing you worry about in the Big East is, since the league's the way it is this year, not been the case past X amount of years, but since the way it is this year, like, you can't lose focus. Like, and I just don't know that either one of them is going to lose focus. It's going to come down to head-to-head competition. And at Marquette, I'd give them the edge, and at UConn, I'd give UConn the edge. That's kind of where I'm at. I don't know how this is going to pan out. But to me, like, that's a clear 1-2. Clear 1-2. I don't know. I think it's just going to come down to who stays focused and who has an off night.
Yeah, I'll say this. I think that there is the concern that I would have for Marquette right now. I think Marquette is and rightfully should be the favorite to win the regular season. I think St. John's is probably there. St. John's is a step below those two, but it's
those
close.
Those games. Just package the three teams together, and when any of them go to Creighton.
Yes,
just because it's just a different. It's just a different atmosphere.
Yep.
That is.
I will just say
that is going to be phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. UConn Marquette. I think the game of Milwaukee, I know, is a Saturday night game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's just going to be terrific when those two teams play.
Yep.
Go
The one concern that I have for Marquette is that they are a little reliant on Cam Jones, like a little over reliant on Cam Jones, and will his legs hold up? Will he be able to kind of give you these 28, 30?
He's in
great
incredible shape.
Yeah.
T.O.
What happens is, so the Dayton game, like here's the other concern. The Dayton game, he picked up his third foul when Marquette was up by 13 points with, I think it was 18 and a half minutes left in the second half.
Yeah.
And comes out of the game, and he's out of the game for 2 minutes and 30 seconds, comes back in at the under 16, and it goes from 39-26 to 41-38. And Marquette was never able to kind of regain that rhythm. So that's my concern, is not like, is he good enough to do it? It's, that there's going to be instances where he gets in foul trouble.
When's Sean Jones coming back?
Soon.
Okay, so
by the way, very, very quickly, only hoops nuggets that you can only get on DTF. Number one, Nigel James, Marquette fans, the guy you're getting next year, the little point guard. I just saw him yesterday playing for Long Island Lutheran. He's terrific.
Freaking tough is what he is.
Other recruiting circuit takeaway. Before I head to City of Palms tomorrow for a couple of games down there, can't wait. Chris Sinak, the kid Houston got, holy crap.
Yeah.
He's huge.
Yeah.
He's freaking huge. I am all in on Chris Sinak. I want to be president of the fan club.
Yeah. That's good, man.
Marquette. Here's the thing. It's not the first time that a powerhouse team has been reliant on one player.
No.
So, of course, he had foul trouble. Dayton made their run. Dayton's a really good team. They were at home. Who's to say Dayton doesn't make their run if Jones is on the floor?
That's the other part of it. Yeah. Good point.
So I understand your take, Rob. I totally get it. And if Jones went down with an injury, oh my God, that'd be horrible. That being said, T.O. knows this because he's had them directly in person. I can't speak to this, and neither can any of us because of we haven't had them in person. But T.O., you've watched this kid. I've watched him practice. He is unbelievably conditioned. He might be as good of a conditioned player in the country. And you're right on Sean Jones. Sean Jones is vital. When Sean Jones is back, that alleviates the pressure from always being on Stevie Mitchell and Chase Ross.
Yep. Mm-hmm. It's going to alleviate the pressure. You have to get him off the ball a little bit. Like just a little bit. He's put up crazy numbers. Got to get him off the ball.
Smart ain't worried. Shaka Smart ain't worried.
No, shoot, no. Back to Nigel James. Wasn't that the kid that was supposed to go to Providence and then Cooley left? He was committed to Providence a couple years ago.
Might have been.
And then Cooley left. But that kid's tough. And you want to talk about a guy that fits Shaka?
He's pretty good. Kate Mingo going to Penn State. Good to get for Mike Rhodes. His younger brother Dylan's figuring it out.
Yeah.
I'm jumping into some of the like EYBL's a lot of fun, but it's refreshing. It was a topic on our pod that I know you're going to get to here at some point with the freshmen. It's just so fun to be talking about freshmen again.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the NBA draft stuff is really interesting. We'll get to that in a second. Before we do, I do just want to hit you guys on this. The best team outside of the Power 5 structure, who is it? Is it Gonzaga? I think there's a very strong case to make that it's Dayton. I think that when you see Memphis and you just kind of block out any kind of Arkansas State-ish kind of performances, that Memphis deserves to be in that conversation. Maybe St. Mary's, maybe Boise State deserves a mention here. Like T.O., is it Gonzaga? Is it Dayton? Is there anybody else that you would put into that conversation? Because I'm kind of at the point now. I was beating the Gonzaga jump earlier. I kind of think it's Dayton, man. I kind of think it's them.
I tell you what, the most talented out of that group you just mentioned is freaking Memphis.
Mm-hmm.
Those kids are talented. And they're not kids; they're Fanta's age, but like they are talented. They can hit tough shots. They just struggle with focus at times, and that scares me because they play the American. How juiced are they going to get to play Temple away on a freaking Thursday?
That's the problem.
Like that's the problem with Memphis. Like they're the most talented ones, but they show up for the big ones. That's the thing that scares me more than anything. They just show up for the big ones. Like you play in the American Conference, you better show up for the ones that don't get you as excited. If they do, they could make a run. If they do, they could make the second weekend.
The one thing I will say about Memphis is that they've, as much as anybody can punch their ticket at this point when you're not playing in the SEC or playing in the Big 12, they beat Missouri at home. They beat San Francisco in what was functionally an away game. They beat UConn on a neutral. They beat Michigan State on a neutral, which is going to look – those are both top 25 wins right now. And they just won at Clemson, who's probably the second best team in the ACC. Like they're dancing, man. Like they won at UNLV too. Like
they're dancing if they don't lose their focus, but they've done that before.
Yeah, that
yeah,
is
but
true.
even then, this year they should dance. They're now in position to be battling for a good seed. They've done enough to be in position to like. They should right now. I haven't looked at updated brackets.
If they don't, they're not projected to lose another game this season. They aren't, because they get Mississippi State and Ole Miss at home, and then they play in the like.
They're going to lose.
I know, but imagine if they head into the tournament as at like, let's just say 29-6, right? And they win the American regular season and they win the American tournament. Like they're a top 3-4 seed.
They're
because of wins over UConn, wins over Michigan State, a win at Clemson. Like those wins have longevity, man. Like that win against UConn is only going to look better.
Yeah, and the coach who overhauled the staff in September might have known what he was doing.
Yeah. Are we ever going to get an apology from Goodman to Penny Hardaway? What do you think?
No. We're going to make him apologize
and Randolph's going to be on the pod.
Mm-hmm.
If that team wins a tournament game this year, the apologies demanded.
Yeah, demanded.
If they
and it needs to be on there with John Martin hosting and Randolph Childress on the pod too.
No, you know what? It's not even on an episode. This is a standalone thing. You know how we did a special podium? Yeah, you know how we did a special stream for AJ DeBonsa committing to BYU, and we've done special streams for like John Calipari getting hired at Arkansas and Mark Pope getting hired at Kentucky. This is going to be a special a Field of 68 like exclusive. Jeff Goodman apologizes to Penny. We should get him on.
Yeah,
we should have Penny on so Jeff can apologize to him face to face.
Dude, they are shooting 44% from three.
That's the difference.
What happens when that regresses to the mean eventually?
Their athleticism is going to carry them through.
Okay, fair enough.
And you know what? They're athletic enough that it might never really regress to the mean because they create open looks, but they also rebound.
Yeah.
Dane Danger was a really nice portal pickup.
Mm-hmm. He was really good. All right. When we get back, we have a player of the year watch list over at the Field of 68 that I want to talk with you guys about. And I have a take on Dylan Harper versus Cooper Flagg that I'm curious if you guys agree with me. That is coming up after this word from our sponsors. Now that the college basketball season is in full swing, you need to make sure that you have access to the best betting tool on the market, the Rhythm app. Spelled RITHMM, is a data-backed app that uses AI and analytics to identify inefficiencies in betting lines and the player prop market that will allow you, the user, to profit. You can create customized, analytics-driven betting models tailored to your personal preferences as a bettor. Users have access to up-to-the-second against-the-spread data. And if you're like me and you understand pictures better than numbers on a screen, Rhythm's internal trend analysis provides you with the kind of graphs that will allow you to evaluate past results and project future performance in a visual way. Every Division I college basketball team is included in the Rhythm's metrics. Free subscribers to the Field of 68 Daily will get 25% off for a Rhythm subscription. Use the QR code on the screen to sign up or download. All right, fellas, let's get into it. Our player of the year watch list. Johni Broome and Cam Jones are the two guys at the very top of the list, right? And I think that is inarguable, the two favorites. Once you get past that, Flagg, Braden Smith, Walter Clayton, Eric Dixon, Keshawn Gilbert, Hunter Dickinson, Dylan Harper, PJ Haggerty, Ryan Nembhard. There's a long list of guys that you can get into there. I guess my question, Fan, I'll go to you first, and T, I want you to weigh in too. Like, is there any way that anybody can catch Johni Broome or Cam Jones at this point? Like, I think it's very clearly to me going to be one of those two guys. What Johni Broome is doing right now is unheard of. 19 points, 13 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 blocks. Like, what are we talking about? That's ridiculous. That's Nikola Jokic kind of stuff.
Yep.
Look, it's going to be hard for either one of them to get there. I theorize, and I think, like, if Duke runs the ACC and Cooper Flagg is keeping up this sheer productivity, then maybe he's in the mix there because he's just so talented and does so many things well. And maybe he's just scratched the surface. Like T.O., as you know, sometimes players regress off the first 6 weeks of the season. Sometimes they go into a totally different stratosphere. I think that could be for Cooper. Now that he's got his feet settled and now he gets into the ACC, like we just know that league is not particularly great this year. He could run ship through that league. But it's going to be hard for anybody to catch them. Paul's right in the comments. Keyshawn Gilbert was better than Cam Jones, and Keyshawn Gilbert deserves all the flowers. Keyshawn's having a sensational season. Nobody's had the year Janai Broom has had. Janai Broom would be my National Player of the Year right now. He's the best player on the best team. But I'll tell you what, fellas, I will say this. It does impress me to this point, and you wish they had not taken bad losses, but the nation's leading scorer resides at Villanova. And what I'm marveling at is Eric Dixon is legitimately at the top by a wide margin of every scouting report. And this guy's got several 30-plus point games, and he's getting 27, 28 a night. So what happens if they somehow have an incredible league season? Do I think it's going to happen? Probably not. But he is the nation's leading scorer, and his productivity value is unbelievable because he's Villanova's biggest threat, and there's really not a second threat that comes close to him on that team to the same degree. So Broom's the best player in the country. Flagg would be in the mix. There are others that you just mentioned on here. Mark Sears is obviously talented, but he's not at the top of the food chain right now. Janai Broom deserves the award. Can either one of them be caught? Never say never, because there was one year we all thought Trae Young was going to get it, and then Jalen Brunson ended up getting it at the end of the day. So don't sleep on Walter Clayton either. If Florida is better than we even think right now, maybe Walter Clayton is in the mix at the end of the day.
No, Janai right now is the player of the year. I don't think that's much of a debate. He's just been utterly dominant against everybody they've played. It's been ridiculous. It just gets curious if you start looking at some of these other, and Fanta raises a good point about Eric Dixon. I don't know that Villanova is going to be able to really get it going. Nice win over Cincinnati, and then, struggled a little bit out of the gates against Fairleigh Dickinson, but took care of business. But here's where it gets interesting for me, guys, is like, you look at these player of the year standings past, I'm throwing Hunter Dickinson out because I don't think people are just kind of have Hunter fatigue, I think is the right way to put that. So throw him out of there. Cooper Flagg, if he runs roughshod through the ACC and they lose maybe one or two games throughout the entire conference slate, he's going to be in there. Interesting thing about Cooper, and I know we're going to talk about him a little bit later, but I talked to Del Curry about him, and Del doesn't watch a ton of college hoops, but he wanted to watch Duke because Seth played there, and he also heard about Cooper, so he wanted to watch. He said he's going to be so much better in the NBA than he is now. He said those dudes at Duke are just getting in his way, and they don't know how to get out of their way. So he's going to be so much better in the NBA. So Cooper's part of it. I think he could do it. That's just a little note to keep in the back of your mind there when it comes to draft season. But then you can go and look. I love that point about Eric Dixon. If they do a great job through Big East play, Villanova gets in a tournament and wins. Like, I could see that happening, being in the mix. I don't think he wins it, but I think he's in the mix. Another person, like if Memphis goes through, like PJ Haggerty's been awesome. Awesome. Give him some pub. But right now, guys, it's Janai Broom.
Yeah, to me, the conversation is who else fills out the first team All-American team with Janai Broom and Cam Jones at this point. And it's like probably Cooper and then a couple other guys, which it's a really good segue, T.O. So credit to you for being the best host on this podcast. Dylan Harper or Cooper Flagg for the number one pick, because I think Dylan Harper, people don't realize, man,
he's awesome.
He's averaging 23 a game, 23 points, 5 rebounds, 4.6 assists. And his shooting splits, I actually should have brought him up. I don't have him in front of me, but he's shooting really, really well, really efficiently.
59.5 from 2, 36.4 from 3, 75 from the line.
On not the easiest shots either. Like his efficiency on taking tough shots has been really, really impressive. I'm starting to get some Cade Cunningham vibes. I feel like he's a little bit better as a jumbo point guard, I guess, is the phrase that you would use. I think that he could probably play lead guard a little bit in the NBA. I've heard other people compare him
Probably
to,
he'll have to play lead guard
Yeah.
in the NBA. Yeah.
I've heard other people compare him to James Harden, which like has certain connotations, but in terms of like the ability that he has, I think that I can see that as well. These strong-bodied lefties that can get to whatever shot they want to get to. What has to happen? Where do you stand on Dylan Harper versus Cooper Flagg for the number 1 overall pick?
Cooper Flagg, because of the measurables on his ability to cover ground, is just different. To me, like it's not really even.
So it's not even a conversation for you.
It is a conversation to be had depending on what team's drafting number 1 overall. Okay. I think I think Dylan Harper's an all-star. Don't get me wrong. But Cooper Flagg, just because he covers so much ground, there's not many people like Cooper. You're more apt to find big jumbo guards like Dylan than you are somebody like Cooper Flagg. They're both super rare. I'm not going to call them both unicorns, but they're both super rare in the things that they can do. But Cooper just, what do you envision when you're trying to project ahead? Somebody who can get to spots quickly, somebody who can get downhill in straight lines and can cover a lot of ground and make it look effortless. Like Cooper does all of that. Plus defensively, he's a plus. So I think, if I'm picking, it's Cooper. It is what it is. If AJ DeBonsa was in this draft class, it would be a different conversation. Those guys are a lot closer, but Dylan's going to be an all-star caliber player for a long time. And the crazy thing about him is, what he does sometimes outside of that big shot on national stage on Fox, where he hits it at the end, like he hits tough shots, but they're kind of in the flow, kind of in the rhythm, and nothing ever looks really all that difficult. He makes the difficult look really easy.
Yes.
And that's kind of like where his intrigue is. I think he's super talented. He's a top 5 pick. If it's between him and Cooper, it's Cooper.
Fanta?
It's close. Not ready to commit to that it's a foregone conclusion. I would lean Cooper, but whereas it was 90-10 for Cooper before the season started, I think it's now 65-35. I really think it's tightening, and there's time. Dylan Harper is as good of a shot maker off the dribble in college basketball right now as there is, and he's doing it on a team that does not have a lot of talent outside of Ace Bailey around him. That Rutgers team does not have much talent beyond those 2 freshmen because they paid for those 2 freshmen and didn't have much left in the bank elsewhere. Cooper Flagg's on an all-star team. Duke is a stud team of stars, some of which have played up to the standard, others of which have not. You have to consider Dylan Harper for the number 1 pick if he continues this scoring and shot-making pace in the rugged Big Ten.
Yeah, I still think it's Cooper Flagg, but it's I would think it's a lot closer than people think in terms of where they're in terms of what it'll be. I can't get past look, Dylan Harper's kind of young for his age, right? He's born in March of 2026, 2006. So he will turn 19 during the NCAA tournament, but actually more likely during the Big Ten tournament. He turns 19 in March. Cooper Flagg is not even 18 years old yet. He will turn 18 years old 4 days from today, December 21st. He is. It's the age thing, man. Like the 17 to 21 is when you do the most development as a basketball player, and I think that he is just scratching the surface of what he can be. So I think it's Cooper Flagg, but Dylan Harper is awesome. More than anything,
I would say 17 to 23, 24.
Yeah, it's that age gap when you make the biggest development and the biggest jump. But the fact that he's doing it 8 months younger than Dylan Harper, I think stands out. But that's not in any way shade on Dylan Harper, who, like, to me, I understand why people are enamored with Ace Bailey and like VJ Epscomb's been fun and Liam McNeely's been awesome. And there's like a whole bunch of really good freshmen here, but like, I think it's those 2. And then you kind of have to figure it out from there. It's so easy to look at what Dylan Harper does and project that to the NBA and see all these guys that are super productive that you build teams around at that level and to see what he can do. So it's kind of where I'm at with the guys. If you had to make one hot take, one bold prediction on a guy that we maybe didn't mention or someone that was down the list of that player of the year race that you think should be first team All-American that isn't getting enough pub, is there anybody that immediately jumps to mind for you guys at all?
I think if there's one guy, it's not National Player of the Year. It might be freshman first team All-American. I don't think Derek Queen's getting enough due.
Very good take.
That dude has been
Outstanding take.
He's an old school big. We've talked about Dylan. We've talked about Ace Bailey. We've talked about Malawach. We've talked about Cooper. We've talked about all these guys around the country. Derek Queen is, I'm not even going to call it quietly dominating. It's just the fact that Maryland hasn't really been at the forefront in a minute, and they're kind of getting back into that spot. And it's not all because of him, but it's a big part of it. And the dude has been awesome spearheading what Maryland is. And, he was fantastic against Purdue. What was it, December 8th? They haven't played in a while. My God, they haven't played in 10 days? He ended up with 26 and 12. We don't talk enough about him. That guy is unbelievable. Huh?
Kevin took a golf trip to take some time away.
That's what it was.
It's a wine country, right?
Yeah, right. They have a big game that I am circling. I might go down. Friday, January 10th, they host UCLA. And I expect College Park to have a real vibe there. UCLA looks good early in Big Ten play. So does Maryland. When Xfinity is rocking down in College Park, that is one of the best.
Unbelievable environment. I would say top 10 in America environment.
It's
you have to
really, really good. I mean,
some bitch can get real quiet though.
Yes, it can.
Yes, it can.
I've been there to make them quiet.
Is that where you had your dunk, or is that the dunk that you missed?
No, that's where I had the game winner that put us in the tournament and knocked them to the NIT, to the NIT.
To the Nits. Okay.
Is Clemson going to beat South Carolina tonight?
Yeah, I think so. It'll be a tough one. South Carolina's good, man. They're good. Everybody's like, well, they're down. They're down. You look back, they're dead last in the SEC, and it's like, dude, they what's going on at South Carolina? Dude, they're 7-3. And outside of a first game of the year, it's crazy. Colin Murray-Boyles is a first-round pick.
If they win, you're gonna be like, South Carolina guys is really, really freaking good.
Oh yeah, I'm blowing.
You know what's funny about that? Look at the teams that are around them right now in Ken Palm. They are directly in front of Kansas State and New Mexico. That kind of puts it into context. And they're the worst team in the SEC. And New Mexico's got an outside chance of getting an at-large bid thanks to that win.
If they don't sleep through their opener against North Florida, the conversation is completely different because their only losses are Indiana and Xavier.
Line on that game's 2 tonight, and the game is in Columbia.
It's in Columbia. Roy Philpott, my main man.
Look, if Clemson lost the game, I mean, it'd be tough because you've lost to Memphis too, but it wouldn't be surprising.
Can I throw one more name at you guys that is getting nowhere near enough pub in terms of being a first-team All-American candidate?
There we go. Alex Caravan, go ahead.
No, you ready for this? Wade Taylor.
Oh, shit, yeah.
Yeah, he's always on the radar. I was going to bring him up. Yep.
Well, he went from being a guy last year that had to rely on, he had to shoot everything. And it was the lack of efficiency that he had that really just kind of dropped him down all those rankings. But his offensive rating is 120 this year. He's shooting 36% from three. He's getting to the free throw line. His assist rate is up. His turnover rate is down. And his steal rate is up. He had 5 steals the other day against Purdue. Texas A&M quietly.
What a relief it was for him when they brought Jurek Phelps in from SMU.
Yes.
He could finally relax a little bit and play off the ball.
Yep. Last 5 games for Texas A&M. Win over Creighton on a neutral when they had Pop Isaacs. Win over Rutgers on a neutral. Win over Wake Forest at home. Texas Tech on a neutral. Purdue in Indianapolis. They've also beaten Ohio State at home. That is a sneaky good team that no one is talking about because they might not even be top 5 in their own conference. Listen, gentlemen, this has been fun. It's always great to catch up with you guys. Tio, you're going to be on After Dark tonight at 11 o'clock. Fanta, I think that we're on. I don't remember. You are right now at Villanova watching practice. You were on the call with Robbie Hummel tonight on the old cock, right?
There we go.
We're on Peacock tonight, 7:30 Eastern time for Villanova hosting Seton Hall Wildcats in a must-win situation here. Anytime the team is hosting Seton Hall in the Big East, that's going to be the case. Seton Hall has not won at the Finneran Pavilion since '94. I was not alive. Villanova 12-0 in their last 12 Big East home openers. at the Finneran Pavilion. So that'll be tonight with Robbie Hummel. First time with Robbie.
I love that we finally get Robbie Hummel to come over and experience Big East basketball, and he gets Seton Hall against Villanova in a game that's going to have a lot of Big Ten vibes, shall we say.
We're ready. We're ready. I look forward.
You better be ready. Fellas, it is always a pleasure. Enjoy the call tonight, Fanto. I will absolutely be tuned in, and so will my kids. As soon as I said that John Fant is on the TV, everybody gets